Have you ever wondered if the voice you sometimes hear in your mind, the whisper that arrives in silence, the sudden thought that changes your path, is more than just imagination? What if it is God, speaking not through thunder or fire, but through the hidden corridors of your own mind? Imagine a woman walking alone at dusk. Her heart is heavy, her questions endless. She sits on a park bench, unsure of her next step in life. As she stares at the fading light, a single phrase rises in her mind: "Do not be afraid." She doesn't know where it comes from. No one is around. Yet those words shift something inside her. The burden eases, clarity dawns, and she feels guided. Was it her brain inventing comfort, or was it a divine message written in the language of thought? The human mind is often compared to an ocean, vast, mysterious, and full of unseen currents. Beneath the surface, waves of memory, emotion, and reason are always moving. But sometimes, amidst the chaos, a ripple appears that does not belong to us. A sudden insight, a gentle push, a warning before danger, or a call toward love. Could these be the ways God weaves his voice into our consciousness? Throughout history, prophets, saints, and ordinary people have described such moments. Times when thoughts became revelations, when silence became speech. And now, even science begins to uncover that the brain is not static, but alive, reshaping itself like clay in the hands of a master potter. This capacity for transformation may not just be biological, it may be spiritual, designed so we can tune ourselves to the divine frequency. If that is true, then every choice we make, every word we speak, every emotion we nurture might be part of a hidden dialogue with the Creator. But what happens when the noise of the world drowns out that voice? What if the mind becomes so clouded that we no longer hear the guidance waiting to reach us? Some say the answer lies in renewing the mind, cleansing it from within so that God's whispers can be heard clearly. Others believe the signs are already present, written in the very fabric of our thoughts, waiting to be uncovered. And it is in this mystery, between the science of the brain and the secrets of the spirit, that the path begins to open. A path that leads us to understand not only how we think, but how God may be speaking through the very thoughts we call our own. You wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing, the fragments of a dream still burning in your mind. It is the same dream you've had 3 nights in a row. Different details, but always the same message echoing beneath the surface. Something is about to change. You dismiss it, tell yourself it's nothing, yet when the dream returns again, deeper and more vivid, you begin to wonder, is someone trying to speak to me? For many, this is not a rare occurrence. Dreams that circle back, carrying symbols we can't fully decipher. A child who appears in the dream, though we don't know who they are. A door that opens to blinding light. A voice that calls our name, though no face is ever revealed. They are more than passing illusions of the night. They feel charged, as if the soul itself is receiving a message hidden in the language of symbols. Then there are the numbers. You glance at the clock at 11:11, and the next day it happens again. Soon it's not just the clock. Receipts, license plates, room numbers, they all begin to repeat with uncanny precision. You tell yourself it must be chance, but something inside whispers otherwise. It feels orchestrated, as though the universe, or God himself, has left fingerprints scattered through your path. And what about the sudden waves of intuition, the strange knowing that strikes without warning? A mother who wakes at dawn with an unshakable feeling that her child is in danger, only to learn later that an accident was narrowly avoided. A man who hesitates before taking a road he drives every day, choosing another route, and later discovers there was a crash exactly where he would have been. These moments don't follow logic. They feel like whispers of a deeper intelligence breaking through the fog of daily life to protect and guide us. Sometimes the body itself becomes the messenger, a shiver down the spine when someone enters the room, a sudden chill in the middle of prayer, as though an unseen presence brushed against us, a weight in the chest when a wrong decision is near, or an unexplainable lightness when the right choice comes into focus. The body feels what the mind refuses to acknowledge, becoming a vessel for divine communication. And yet, in the noise of our modern lives, we are taught to ignore these signs. We convince ourselves that dreams are random, numbers are coincidences, and intuition is superstition. We numb the very senses designed to connect us to something greater. Deep down, though, the unease remains, because part of us knows these signs carry weight. They are not mistakes. They are pieces of a hidden language written in the fabric of our daily lives. The greatest pain comes from doubting ourselves. We feel the signs, but we question them. We long for certainty, for proof that God is speaking, yet the messages are subtle, fleeting, easily drowned out by fear or distraction. And so we live suspended, half believing, half dismissing, trapped between wonder and skepticism. But what if these signs are not random at all? What if the repeated dreams, the mysterious numbers, the pressing intuitions are threads of a larger tapestry, a direct line of communication woven into our existence? If that is true, then the question is no longer if God is speaking, but whether we are truly listening. And so one haunting question lingers in the silence. If the signs are everywhere, in dreams, numbers, whispers of intuition, and even the very signals of our bodies, what hidden truth are they leading us toward? And what happens if we finally dare to follow? Have you ever noticed that some of the greatest revelations come not in the noise of the world, but in the quiet of your own mind? There is a reason why throughout history, prophets, sages, and visionaries spoke of the renewing of the mind as the key to hearing the voice of the divine. And this brings us to the first great spiritual sign, a sign so subtle that most people overlook it, yet so powerful that it has guided saints, mystics, and seekers for centuries: the hidden language of recurring thoughts. This is not the ordinary chatter of the brain, the endless cycle of worries, lists, and noise. No, this is different. It is the sudden idea that returns again and again, despite your attempts to dismiss it. It is the voice that rises in stillness, repeating a message that feels larger than yourself. These recurring thoughts are not accidents. They are one of the oldest ways God speaks through the human mind. Think of Moses. Before the burning bush, before the miracles, he had already carried within him the relentless thought that his people were not meant to live in chains. That thought haunted him, burned within him, long before God revealed his plan in fire. Or consider the young Samuel lying in the temple when he first heard his name called. The sound was so gentle he thought it was the priest Eli, yet it came again and again, until he realized it was the Lord who had been speaking all along. Ancient traditions confirm this mystery. In the Vedas, it is said that what the mind repeats, the soul is trying to reveal. In the Desert Fathers of early Christianity, the belief was clear. Persistent inner words are often divine seeds planted in human soil, and modern neuroscience only deepens this truth. Scientists call it neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to carve pathways by repetition. Could it be that God uses this very design to inscribe his messages into us, that by repetition, his whispers become carved into our thoughts, until they are impossible to ignore? But here lies the secret that most never see. Not every recurring thought is divine. Some are born of fear, of ego, of old wounds replaying themselves. The art, the sacred discipline, is learning to discern. How? By testing the fruit. Does the thought lead to peace, to growth, to love? Or does it drag you into despair, anger, or pride? The Apostle Paul wrote it with piercing clarity in Romans 12:2. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is. The transformation is not in the thought itself, but in the source that nourishes it. Let us look at a living example. A woman wakes every day with the thought, "Forgive him." She resists it. She argues. The person hurt her deeply. Why should she forgive? Yet the thought does not go away. It visits her in prayer. It whispers in her dreams. It stirs even in her quiet moments. Weeks pass until finally she surrenders. She forgives. And suddenly she feels lighter, freer, as though a chain has fallen away. Was this merely psychological relief? Or was it the gentle insistence of God carving his healing message into her mind? Or a man, burdened with doubt, hears the repeating phrase, "Start again." He tells himself he has failed too many times, but the words keep returning, not harshly, not condemning, but like a steady stream of water carving stone. Start again. One day he obeys, he rebuilds, his life flourishes, and he realizes this was not his own voice. It was grace disguised as thought calling him home. The hidden law here is extraordinary. When a thought persists beyond logic, beyond resistance, and carries within it the fragrance of love, it may well be the whisper of God. And to those who listen, life begins to shift in profound ways, because if God can plant his will directly into your neural pathways, then your very brain becomes the parchment of heaven and your thoughts the ink of the eternal. Yet this revelation carries both light and weight. For if the mind can be a sanctuary, it can also be a battlefield. Darker forces, wounds, and fears can also imprint themselves in repetition, imitating the divine voice. And this is why discernment matters. Not every voice is sacred. Not every repetition is holy. The question becomes, which whispers are we feeding? Which thoughts do we allow to write themselves into our souls? This is why spiritual practice, prayer, meditation, scripture, silence, are not empty rituals. They are the tuning of the instrument. They sharpen our discernment so that when God's thought repeats within us, we recognize it for what it is, not our own invention, but a message meant to transform us. And here, my friend, is where you and I must pause and reflect. What recurring thought has been chasing you? What inner voice keeps returning, no matter how you try to ignore it? Could it be more than chance? Could it be that you are already in dialogue with the divine, whether you realize it or not? If these words are stirring something inside you, I invite you to take a moment, like entering a secret circle of seekers, and join this community of souls who are learning to listen. Like this video, subscribe and become part of a space where hidden knowledge is not rejected, but embraced. Because in this journey, we are not alone. And soon, you will see, the first secret is only the beginning, and there is something even deeper waiting to be uncovered. There was a woman named Elizabeth who lived in a quiet town in the Midwest. To the outside world, she seemed like anyone else. She worked at the library, tended her small garden, and cared for her elderly mother. But inside, she carried a heaviness that no one could see. Years earlier, she had lost her husband in a car accident, and though time had passed, the wound never truly healed. Her days were filled with silence, yet her mind was a storm. She often asked herself, "Where are you, God? If you are real, why can't I hear you?" One night after a long day at work, Elizabeth sat alone on her porch. The sky was painted with streaks of deep purple and gold, the air heavy with the smell of rain. She felt tired, worn down by the repetition of grief and loneliness. She closed her eyes and whispered the same prayer she had prayed for years. "Lord, just speak to me once. Show me that you are here." As she sat in silence, something unusual happened. A phrase rose in her mind, so softly she thought she imagined it. "You are not alone." She opened her eyes quickly, her heart pounding. No one was around. The street was empty. The words had not come from her own thoughts. They felt different, warmer, as though they carried weight. She shook her head, convinced it was wishful thinking. But then, the next day, as she walked through the library, her eyes caught a book she had never noticed before. It was open on the return cart, its title shining as if waiting for her, "Never Alone." The words struck her like lightning. She picked it up trembling, and as she opened the first page, the dedication read, "To those who seek God in silence, you are not forgotten." She froze, tears welling in her eyes. It felt as though the phrase from the night before had materialized in the world around her. Still unsure, she tested it again. That night she prayed, "If it is truly you, tell me again." She went to bed, restless. In the early morning she woke from a dream. In it, she was walking across a field of wheat, and in the distance she saw her husband. He didn't speak, but behind him, written across the sky in golden letters, were the words, "You are not alone." She woke up sobbing, overwhelmed by both grief and peace. The days that followed were filled with more whispers. Sometimes it was through people, a neighbor who knocked on her door to bring her dinner, repeating the phrase without knowing, "I just thought you shouldn't be alone tonight." Sometimes it was through sudden intuition, nudging her to call her sister just as her sister was about to fall into despair. Over and over, the words returned, echoing not only in her mind but also in her reality. Elizabeth began to realize something. This was not coincidence. This was not imagination. It was a conversation hidden in repetition, symbols, and dreams. God had been speaking all along, but she had been too weighed down to notice. Once she opened her heart, the signs multiplied. She felt her grief slowly lift, replaced by a quiet strength. The phrase that once startled her became a lifeline, "You are not alone." One Sunday, while reading Psalm 139, her eyes fell upon the verse, "Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence?" And in that moment the puzzle fit together. She saw the thread that connected every whisper, every dream, every sign. God had never left her. He had been speaking through the very fabric of her mind and life, waiting for her to tune in. Elizabeth's story is not unique. Many who watch this now have felt the same. A phrase that repeats, a number that appears, a dream that refuses to fade. These are not empty coincidences. They are divine fingerprints, guiding you, reminding you that you are seen, you are known, you are not forgotten. So now, let me ask you, what has been your sign? What phrase, dream, or intuition has chased you, tugged at your heart, and made you wonder if God was reaching out to you? Share your story in the comments. I read them, I reflect on them, and in upcoming videos I may even mention your name and your experience, because your story could be the light someone else needs. But beyond your story lies something even greater, a second revelation that unveils not only the signs themselves, but also the technique, the practical path that allows us to sharpen our minds and hearts until God's voice becomes unmistakably clear. And once you discover it, everything about the way you see your thoughts will change forever. The first secret showed us the power of recurring thoughts, those inner whispers that return again and again until we recognize their source. But there is a second great spiritual sign that is just as profound and perhaps even more immediate, the alignment between emotion and circumstance. This sign is the meeting point where what you feel inside mirrors what unfolds outside. It is when your inner atmosphere suddenly synchronizes with events around you, almost as though reality itself is speaking your language. Many dismiss this as coincidence, but ancient wisdom has always taught otherwise. Think about it. How many times have you felt an unshakable heaviness in your chest, only to discover moments later that someone close to you was struggling in silence? Or the way your spirit feels unexpectedly lifted just before good news arrives? These are not random fluctuations of mood. They are subtle signals, threads connecting the soul with a larger divine pattern. The Bible describes it beautifully. In Ecclesiastes 3, there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. The alignment of your emotions with unfolding circumstances is one of the ways God teaches you discernment about what season you are in. It is not about predicting the future like fortune-telling. It is about recognizing the whispers of timing, the divine choreography moving through both heart and world. And here is the hidden meaning. When your emotions surge beyond explanation and match the unfolding of events around you, it is often a sign that you are being tuned to God's frequency. The alignment is the message, the resonance is the proof. But how can you tell when this is truly a divine sign and not just a passing mood? Here lies the practical technique you can use starting today. The technique of inner-outer reflection. Pause and name the feeling. When a strong, sudden emotion arises, whether peace, heaviness, urgency, or joy, stop for a moment and give it a name. Say to yourself, "I feel..." This simple act anchors the emotion in awareness instead of letting it slip away unnoticed. Observe the outer mirror. Within the next few hours, pay attention to your surroundings, conversations, and events. Ask, does anything echo this feeling? For example, a sudden wave of compassion may be mirrored by a stranger who opens up to you. A sudden heaviness may be mirrored by unexpected bad news. Discern the source. Once you notice the alignment, test its fruit. Ask, does this alignment call me to action, comforting someone, praying, making a decision, or is it simply a confirmation of God's presence? If the alignment draws you toward love, truth, or growth, it is more than a mood. It is a divine sign. Respond, don't ignore. The secret is in your response. A signal ignored fades into noise, but a signal honored becomes a pathway. If your heart suddenly urges you to reach out to someone and later you discover they needed you, that is confirmation. By responding, you sharpen the connection. Let's bring this to life with a story. A young man named Daniel once felt a sudden urgency as he was about to leave his house. His chest grew tight and his thoughts filled with his grandmother's face. He called her immediately, only to learn she had fallen in the kitchen and couldn't get up. His alignment of inner feeling with outer reality saved her from further harm. To him, it was not coincidence, it was divine prompting spoken through the mysterious language of alignment. Anyone can practice this. You don't need years of training or to be a prophet or mystic. You only need awareness. You only need the humility to pause, notice, and respond. That is how you sharpen your perception. That is how you begin to live as though your mind and heart are tuned to a higher frequency. And here is the most extraordinary part. The more you honor these alignments, the more frequent and clear they become. It is like training your spiritual senses. God is always speaking, but most people rush through life without listening. By practicing the reflection between inner emotion and outer circumstance, you are no longer blind to the dialogue already happening around you. But I must tell you, there is a sign even deeper than this. A sign so hidden that only a few ever recognize it, though it shapes the very fabric of their lives. It is not about thoughts or emotions, but something far more mysterious. Something that can change how you see your very existence. And once it is revealed, you will never look at the language of God the same way again. There is a moment when all signs converge, when thoughts, emotions, and circumstances no longer appear as scattered pieces of life, but as threads of a single tapestry. That tapestry is the third and deepest sign, the silence that speaks. Unlike recurring thoughts or emotional alignments, this sign cannot be forced, predicted, or controlled. It descends like dawn after a long night. It is the sudden stillness in which everything becomes clear, not because words are spoken, but because truth reveals itself without sound. In that silence, the soul understands what the mind cannot explain. Mystics across centuries testified to this sign. Elijah stood upon the mountain, waiting for God in the wind, the fire, the earthquake. Yet God was not there. Only in the gentle whisper of silence did he recognize the divine presence. The desert fathers called it hesychia, holy stillness. The Taoists spoke of the empty vessel through which the way could flow. Even modern physics suggests that beneath the noise of particles there is a quantum field of pure potential, humming with invisible order. The silence that speaks is not emptiness. It is fullness disguised as nothing. It is the space where heaven bends close enough for the soul to hear. And here is the hidden truth. When your mind grows quiet, when the storms of thought and emotion settle, you do not lose yourself. You uncover the voice of God that has always been within you. Consider this. How many times have you been walking alone when suddenly everything falls still? The world, your mind, your very breath, and in that pause a knowing floods in. It may not have words, yet you understand. You are loved. You are guided. You are part of something infinite. That is not imagination, that is the deepest sign, the silence that speaks. And this is why silence frightens so many. Because within it there are no distractions, no excuses. It holds a mirror to the soul, reflecting both our shadows and our divine spark. Those who dare to enter that silence often emerge transformed. Their choices shift, their eyes see differently. They walk with a calm strength that cannot be explained. This, dear soul, is the climax of revelation. God is not only speaking to your mind, He is speaking through it, through the very silence that holds your thoughts together. And once you experience it, you realize that the truest communication with the divine is not in thunder, nor in visions, nor even in miracles. It is in the stillness where words fail and eternity begins. And because this message matters, because silence itself is under attack in our noisy, distracted world, I ask you from the heart, if these words resonate with you, if this journey awakens something within you, take a moment now to support it. Subscribe to this channel, leave a like on this video, not because it brings profit, for it does not, but because it strengthens a community of seekers who believe that the soul deserves nourishment, that the whispers of God deserve to be heard. Every subscription, every like is not a number. It is a candle added to this circle of light we are building together. For some, this sign will appear only once or twice in life. For others, it may arrive often in prayer, in meditation, in the still pause between breaths. But whenever it comes, it carries the same truth. You are not separate, you are not forgotten, you are part of the eternal rhythm. Yet here lies the mystery that very few dare to face. If silence is the deepest sign, then what does it mean when silence falls across the whole of humanity? Could there be a moment, foretold by prophets and hidden in scriptures, when the silence itself becomes a prophecy, a preparation for something greater about to unfold? The silence that speaks may be personal, intimate, and tender. But could it also be cosmic? Could it be that the world itself is entering a pause before a divine revelation unlike any before? And if so, are we ready to hear what comes after the silence? From the beginning of time, humanity has longed to know if God truly speaks, if the divine reaches into our fragile lives with whispers of love, guidance, and truth. And now you see, it is not only possible, it is happening constantly. Through the persistence of recurring thoughts, through the alignment of emotions with the events around you, and through the silence that speaks louder than thunder, God is reaching into the core of your being. These signs are not abstract mysteries reserved for saints or mystics. They are invitations woven into the rhythm of everyday life, waiting for you to notice. Think back to your own journey. How many times have you brushed off a dream that repeated again and again? How many times have you ignored the pull in your chest that urged you to call someone, or the sudden stillness that seemed to wash over you at the exact moment you needed clarity? These were not coincidences, they were messages, threads of a greater conversation between heaven and earth, between the infinite and your very soul. And perhaps the most hopeful truth of all is this: these signs are not punishments or warnings to terrify you. They are awakenings designed to lift you out of the prison of fear and remind you that you are connected to something vast, eternal, and profoundly loving. Every sign is an act of mercy, every whisper a seed of destiny, every silence a doorway into God's embrace. If you've been waiting for confirmation, here it is. You are not forgotten. You are not wandering blindly. The Creator of the universe is already speaking through your mind, guiding your steps, renewing your heart, and inviting you to live with greater purpose. What may have felt like random moments are, in truth, pieces of a divine dialogue. The question is, will you choose to listen? And so, I leave you with a gentle yet urgent invitation. If these words have stirred something inside you, let that stirring take root. Share your name and your city in the comments below, and I will personally mention some of you in the next video, lifting up your story, honoring your presence, and reminding this growing circle that we are building something sacred together. Press the like button as a sign of your light, and subscribe so that you do not walk this journey alone, but as part of a living community of seekers, dreamers, and believers. Because this is not just another channel, it is a sanctuary of voices, a communion of hearts that refuse to remain asleep while God is speaking. Every time you subscribe, every time you engage, you are not just supporting a video, you are declaring that the whispers of the divine matter, that you are ready to be part of a deeper awakening. And remember this: the signs we've uncovered are only the beginning. There are mysteries still hidden, truths waiting to emerge, and revelations that may change the way you see not only yourself, but the entire fabric of existence. So stay awake, stay listening, because beyond the dreams, the alignments, and the silence, there is something greater still, waiting to be revealed, and when it comes, it will not just speak to your mind, it will transform your life forever.